In this video, we'll be covering the negation symbol, that is the handlebar, and its semantics, that is its meaning in FOL. Let's turn to it. All right, so let's talk about the negation symbol. The negation symbol is this handlebar right here. That's what it looks like. And when you're reading a bit of FOL that is employing a negation, when you come across the negation, it reads as, "It is not the case that." So for instance, if what was being negated was this, you would read it as, "It is not the case that A is a cube." Right? So roughly speaking, it corresponds in meaning to the English not, un, non, it is not the case that, it is false that, so on and so forth. And the way that it works as a connective, as a logical connective, is it goes to the front of the sentence is modifying. Whether that sentence is an atomic sentence that is modifying, whether the sentence is a complex sentence that is modifying. So in this first example here, we see that the negation symbol comes out in front of A is a cube, and it's modifying A is a cube. It says it's not the case that A is a cube. Here in this situation, it's modifying a complex sentence. The complex sentence that it's modifying is both A is a cube and A is a dodecahedron. So what it reads out as in FOL is, it's not the case that both A is a cube and A is a dodecahedron. So again, the negation symbol goes out in front of the sentence that's being modified, and that's different than how English works, and probably different than how most other natural language works. So in English, we have the negation occurring inside of the sentence. It's embedded in it instead of going out in front. All right, so another difference between FOL and a natural language such as English is that it is perfectly fine, grammatically speaking, to employ double negations, triple negations, so on and so forth. So here we have the sentence, "It's not the case that," it's not the case that Bob is a cube. That's a perfect sentence, grammatically speaking, that's a perfect sentence in FOL, whereas in English that would be weird. Here we have, "It's not the case that," it's not the case that, it's not the case that Bob is a cube. Again, perfectly fine, grammatically speaking. All right, so there is this last bit here. There's one exception to putting the negation sign out in front of the sentence that's being modified. As a matter of convention, when we're dealing with a sentence that is employing the identity symbol, when we want to say that something is not identical to something else, or it's not the case that A is identical to B, for instance, instead of writing it this way, it's typically written this way, employing that sign that's the identity sign with a slash through it. So just keep that in mind when you come across that. That just means it's not the case that A is identical to B. All right, so just as a matter of jargon, if the term literal comes up, just know that what falls under that classification is atomic sentences, but also the negation of atomic sentences. Either case, whether we're talking about an atomic sentence or the negation of an atomic sentence, those are literals. All right, so on to the semantics of negation. That is, what does negation mean in FOL? So negation in FOL means the following. For any sentence P of FOL, whether P is atomic or complex sentence, it doesn't matter. For any sentence P of FOL, there is a sentence negation P, so it's just the same atomic or complex sentence, it's just, with the exception that it has a negation out in front of it. So for any sentence P of FOL, there is a sentence negation P that is true if and only if P is false, and is false if and only if P is true. So if the sentence being negated is false, then this returns true. Okay? And if that sentence is true, then this sentence would return false. That's how we understand the meaning of the negation in FOL. And we can see that represented in this truth table. In situation 1, we see that P is true. This is telling us what not the case P truth value is. Not the case P then gives us false. It returns false for that. In situation 2, P is false as opposed to being true, and negation P returns true to us. So another way to think about what the negation symbol does is it tells you to assign the opposite truth value of the sentence that's being negated. So if in a world that we're looking at, it turns out that A is a cube is false, then what not the case A is a cube would tell us to do in that situation is to return true. But if A is a cube is true, then A is a cube will tell us to return false. So it's always just telling you, give out the opposite truth value of the sentence that's being negated. All right, so we have one last way in which we can use to think about the semantics of the negation symbol, what negation means in FOL, and that's through the Hintica game. And we find the Hintica game in Tarski's world. And what you'll note here is that I have a statement. It's not the case that A is a cube, but in the world that we're applying that statement to, A is a cube. Up in this button, I can start playing the Hintica game. Now, in this game, when we're talking about negation, if we say that a proposition is true, for instance, that A is a cube, or that A is not, or it's not the case that A is a cube, then you're stuck being committed to it not the case P being false. And when you commit yourself to P being false, then that forces you to accept that not the case P is true. So let's see this in action. So we choose our initial commitment. This is what this asks us to do. The sentence that we were looking at is not the case A is a cube. Let's say we think it's true. So it's going to check with us to make sure that we really do believe that. So let's say okay. And notice then that commits us that A is a cube is false. We lost the game because A is a cube. So what you can see this game doing, it might be a little bit difficult since we're just looking at a relatively simple complex sentence, but it resolves your commitments down to its basic components to then show you why you were right or why you were wrong. Let's end this game. Let's check the sentence. It's not the case that it's not the case that A is a cube. Okay, so that's our initial commitment. I'm going to say I think that it's true. So it's going to double check. You think this is true? Yes, I do. So I believe that it is false that it's not the case that A is a cube. That's right. So I must believe that it's true that A is a cube. That's correct. And we see that in this time we actually win. So that's another way that can help you think about the meaning of not just negation, but all of the other logical connectives and other logical operators that we'll be dealing with. And that concludes this video on the negation symbol and the semantics of it. That is, what the negation means in FOL. Thanks for watching.